Hello, my wonderful Math 8 kiddos. This will be your Math 8 Interim Assessment Study Guide. So go ahead and let's get started. So this first question, Ronika has a saltwater fish tank. She knows the water in the tank must have the right amount of salt in order for the fish to survive. To get the proper salinity, Ronika mixes the water and salt according to the measurements shown in the table. All right, so let's go ahead and graph the line that represents the relationship shown in the table. So in our table, we're going to start at 0, 0. So we're going to go ahead and make that mark on our graph, and then we're going to go over. Remember, it's always x, comma, y when we're dealing with plotting points from a table. So we'll go over 1 and up a half. Then we go over 2, up 1, and that last coordinate notation from that graph goes over 4 and up 2. So from there, I can go ahead and create a straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line. I'm going to go ahead and create a line through here. So there's my graph. So what is the slope? What is the slope of that line? Well, remember, we can get the slope from any 2 points on the graph. So we can either do rise over run to get the slope, or we could use the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 and find that slope. So I'm going to choose to do the rise over run. So remember, when we're talking about slope, we rise and then we run. So I'm going to rise 1. Be very careful. This graph is actually in halves. So we're going to go up 1 and then over 1, 2. So the slope of my line is rise 1 over 2. So my slope is 1/2. And it asks, what does the slope mean in this situation? So we have to interpret this slope. And how we interpret this slope is by saying, okay, well, every time I'm adding a gallon of water, I'm adding half a cup of sea salt. And that's what this table is telling me. So every time I add 1 gallon of water, every time I add 1 gallon of water, I'm adding half a cup of sea salt. So at 2 gallons, I should have 1 cup of sea salt. So every 1 gallon of water, I add half a cup of sea salt. So that is what that first question is asking. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the second one. So 2 utility companies sell electricity in units of kilowatt hours. The cost of electricity for company P is shown in the table. The cost of electricity for company M can be found by using the equation shown below, where Y represents the total cost in dollars for X kilowatt hours of electricity. So they already went ahead and told me that company M, their rate of change is 15 cents, all right, 15 cents per hour. All right, that's the cost. So the cost would be 15 cents per kilowatt hours. For company P, I actually need to figure out how much that is. Well, if you remember, a table is always a combination of x comma y. So I could write this as 1250, comma 150, and 1650, comma 198. I can use those 2 points and my slope formula to find that rate of change, to find the slope. So I'm going to find that rate of change, or find that slope, by using y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So remember, it doesn't matter which one you use as y2 or y1 as long as you use y's and x's. So I'm going to do 150 minus 198 over 1250 minus 1650. So let me go ahead and take out my handy dandy calculator here and compute this. So 150 minus 198 is negative 48 over 1250 minus 1650 equals negative 400. So when I divide those, I end up getting my slope, or my rate of change, is equal to 0.12 or 0.12. So what I want to do is I'm now going to compare these. So I found out that company P is the rate of change is 0.12, company M is 0.15. So find the cost in dollars of buying 2,375 kilowatt hours of electricity from the least expensive company. Least expensive. If we were to compare company P and company M is 0.15, where company M is $0.12. So I know that company P is less expensive, so I'm going to use their rate of change to figure out how much money it would cost. So I would do 0.12 times 2375, and it would cost me $285. All right, so last one for this video. Let's go ahead and look at two different proportional relationships are represented by the equation and the table. So proportion A, they give me y equals 9x. Proportion B, I'm actually going to need to use the table to find that rate of change. And how I find that rate of change, just like before, we can set up these coordinates from the table. So 0, 0, and 3, 34.5. And I can use that same formula. So that slope, that rate of change, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 34.5 minus 0 over 3 minus 0. So that would give me 34.5 over 3. And I can again use that handy dandy calculator. 34.5 divided by 3. So my rate of change is equal to 11.5. So for proportion P, or proportion B, I fill in that rate of change, remember that slope y equals mx, right in front. And so the rate of change for proportion A is blank more than the rate of change for proportion B. Well, it would be 2.5 less than proportion B. And I think we might have one more minute to squeeze in this last one here, so let's go ahead and get started on that. So the number of bottles a machine fills is proportional. Remember that word proportional. It means I'm dealing with y equals mx to the number of minutes the machine operates. The machine fills 250 bottles every 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes, I am filling 250 bottles. Create a graph that shows the number of bottles y the machine fills in x minutes. So remember, we're dealing with y equals mx. So every 20 minutes, I'm filling 250 bottles. So that x is our number of minutes. The y is our bottles filled. So I'm going to plug those numbers in. So I'm going to plug in the 250 for y, and I'm going to plug in the 20 for x. So 250 equals m times that 20. Hopefully by now we know how to divide this and find m. So m, or minutes, or sorry, not m, m is not meaning minutes. M means my rate of change. So if I divide that, I get 12.5 is my rate of change, meaning every minute I'm filling up 12.5 bottles, which means after 2 minutes, I would fill up 25. After 4 minutes would be 50, and this relationship would continue. So we can write this as y equals 12.5 times x, and I can plug in x values to continue to solve for y. So to find this coordinate right here, I plug 1 in, so y would equal 12.5. You could do the same thing to get the rest of those points. All right, so let's go ahead, and this will actually be the last one. Antoine is painting all the rooms in his house this year. Below is a graph representing the relationships between quantity of paint and the area covered by paint. Part A, determine a unit rate for the relationship. So remember, we can get that unit rate from 2 points on the graph. All right, so that unit rate, every 1 gallon, he is covering 400 square feet. Determine the slope of the graph. The slope is 400 over 1, or means I can cover 400 square feet with 1 gallon of paint. All right, so this was part 1. We covered the standard MAFS.8.EE.2.5, which covers all of proportional relationships. Check out part 2 so we can keep moving right along through these standards so you are all set for your interim assessment.